All right, so here's the review for a test that we'll be taking soon. We're going to review solving, graphing inequalities, simplifying expressions, so on and so forth, just throughout this review, including some word problems. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Remember that you should be pausing the video to write things down. Don't just pause and copy everything down. Listen to what's going on here, and so that you understand everything that you need to understand for this class. All right, so first things first, reading the problem here. It says solve and graph the inequality. So I need two things. Solve, we'll be solving for n in this case. So we need to get n by itself, but then we also need a graph. So we need both of those things. So let's work on isolating n. That means we do need to get rid of this -4, this 3, and this -1. And the order in which we do that can change, and how we get rid of those things can also change how we go about solving these problems. So let's go ahead and jump right in on how I might do this. You might do something a little bit different, but this is what I'm going to do. All right, so here we go. There's a couple ways that we could go this first step. We could distribute this -4 and into both of these terms and multiply that through. The other method that we could actually start off by is actually dividing both sides by a -4. And I'm actually going to opt for that method instead. So we are going to actually divide both sides by a -4. And it is really important to remember what happens if we divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number. Now remember, we are dividing because this is multiplication. I noticed a lot of my students are actually adding 4 to both sides to get rid of it, and that is not the case in what we want to do here. This is a -4 times a group, so we need to break up the multiplication with division. These -4s will cross out. That important thing when we divide both sides by a negative is that the inequality sign does flip around, and then we need to do 190 divided by -4, and you are free to use a calculator. And so just in your calculator, type that 190 divided by -4. And that comes out to a -47.5. Right, over here on the right-hand side, we are just left with this one group of 3n minus 1. And now, again, we are working on isolating that n. We still have to get rid of this 3 and this -1. I like to get rid of our constants first by adding 1. And you should do this in your calculator. Make sure that you're doing your -47.5. plus 1, and that comes out to -46.5. I have a lot of my students assuming that this is -48.5, but be very careful. A negative plus a positive is actually going to get closer to 0, and so it's actually going to increase, but it looks like it's decreasing. Over on the right-hand side, our -1 plus 1 does add up to 0, so we don't need to write that. And over here we have 3n. And the same reason why we divided to get rid of this -4, we are going to divide to get rid of this 3 because it's attached by multiplication. We are not dividing by a negative in this case, so we just need to take that answer that we got before and divide by 3. And that comes out to -15.5 is greater than or equal to n. Okay, now we need to graph our inequalities because we had to solve. We're done with that part. Now we graph. Let's get that graph here. The important number is -15.5. And you can count up and down however you'd like. But remember, because we're in the negatives, we need to be thinking kind of backwards. We're going to get closer to get 0 this way. Further from 0 this way. I'm just going to go by increments of 0.5. On my graph, in this case, I need a pen. There we go. My -15.5 is included because we have the equal to sign. And I'm looking at n here, and I'm asking myself, is n the smaller number or is n the bigger number? And because this has the arrow, this little smaller part pointing toward n is actually smaller. That means all of my solutions are smaller. Okay, my solutions are less than -15.5. So another way to actually write this, we could rewrite it as n is less than or equal to -15.5. But because my solutions, my variable, is smaller, we can actually graph everything to the left of -15.5 because that's where all the smaller numbers are. All right, next problem. Simplify the expression. Remember that simplify just basically means go through PEMDAS. Your parentheses, your exponents, your multiplication and division, and your addition and subtraction. I do have parentheses here, but there's nothing inside the parentheses that I can do. There's no like terms or anything I can do here, and there's nothing in here I can do either. Okay. Next thing I would do is exponents. I don't have any. Multiplication or division includes distribution. So we are going to go ahead and distribute our -3 into 2 of our terms here. But then we're also going to have to distribute our 2 into 2 of our terms over here. All right, -3 times 2n is a -6n. -3 times a -5 is a +15. 2 times 7n is a +14n. And 2 times a -6 is -12. All right, we can now go check. I don't have any more multiplication or division to do, so that's done. Now I'm going to look at my addition and subtraction, which includes combining like terms. And I can see that I have like terms here and here. 14n and -6n will combine, and that's basically just saying like -6 plus 14 equals what, but we know we're talking about my like terms, n. And if you don't know what that is, go to your calculator and type in -6 plus 14, and that comes out to be a +8, so that's 8n. The next thing we'll do is combine our other like terms, in this case 15 and -12, those are both constants. Those will combine to be a positive number because there's more positive numbers, but if you're not sure, just go to your calculator and type in 15 plus a -12, and that should come out to be a +3. So simplifying the expression leads us to the expression 8n plus 3. Next, we have another simplify problem. And guess what? It's going to be the same exact thing. Go through PEMDAS. Do you have parentheses? Yes, but there's nothing inside the parentheses to actually do. Do I have any exponents? No, there are no exponents. Do I have multiplication and division? Yes, the distributive property. 4 times 4n is 16n. 4 times -2 is -8. Be very careful here. On this side, we will be distributing a -3. -3 times 5n is -15n. And a negative times a negative is positive, so this will be positive. And 3 times 6 is 18, so +18. Again, we're going to combine our like terms. 16n and -15n are like terms. My terms are in the terms of n, and 16 plus a -15 is 1n. You don't need to write this one. You can just write n. I'm going to write it there for the sake of this problem. And then -8 and 18. -8 plus 18 comes out to be a +10. And that is simplified. However, you don't need to write the 1. You could just write n plus 10. Both of these are great. Next problem, the sum of half of a number m and 15 is 24. Right away I can tell that this is not an inequality because it's saying the answer is 24. The variable we're using is m. I see that I have to find the sum, which I know is addition, and then I have to find also a half of a number, right? Well, half a number would be something divided by 2, right? So let's go through this. I need the sum. Let me go to a highlighter really quick so we can kind of talk about this. The sum of half a number m and 15. Well, the sum takes 2 numbers. So I have a sum of 2 numbers. It has to be half of a number, m. So m divided by 2 would be half of that number, and 15. So now I have the sum of the 2 numbers, which is half of a number and 15. Okay? All right, let's move on to our next step of solving. Again, the hardest part is probably the setup. Once the setup is done, I think you guys will be great. How do we isolate this m? Well, that means we need to get rid of this divide by 2 and this plus 15. I highly recommend that you get rid of that constant first by subtracting 15. Okay. What's left is, over here on the left-hand side, 15 minus 15 is going to go to 0, leaving you with just m divided by 2 equals 24 minus 15, which is 9. And lastly, we just need to get rid of that divide by 2, and we can get rid of divide by 2 by multiplying by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, leaving me with just 1m. You don't need to write the 1. And 9 times 2 is 18. There's our solution. Next up, another word problem that you have to write out the expression. So much fun. All right, here we go. The sum. Remember that a sum takes two numbers. Of two numbers is 80. Well, okay, so the sum of two numbers is 80. The larger number is 20 more than the smaller number, x. So our smaller number is x, and our larger number is 20 bigger than it. Okay, so the two numbers that we're dealing with, a larger and a smaller number. The smaller number is x, which we'll highlight here. Our smaller number is x. Our larger number, is 20 more than that smaller number. Since the smaller number is x, this term represents 20 more than that. So let's solve. Again, we would need to simplify first, so we're going to go through PEMDAS. I do have parentheses, but there's nothing inside them to do. There's no exponents. There is no multiplication or division. You can think of a 1. You can think of a 1 kind of sitting out here. And if I multiply in to multiply that 1 in, you just end up with x plus 20. Then bring down the rest of this with plus x equals 80. That just kind of shows you that you don't need the parentheses if you're dealing with just one group. Okay. Addition and subtraction is next. And you can see that we have like terms, x and x. That's 2 x's plus 20 equals 80. And now it's simplified. Now I just need to solve it. I need to solve the equation 2x plus 20 equals 80. You can start by subtracting 20 from both sides, meaning 20 minus 20 is 0, leaving you with 2x on the left-hand side. 80 minus 20 is 60. Dividing by 2 to get rid of that coefficient. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so we're left with 1x. We don't need to write that 1. And 60 divided by 2 is 30. So we found the value of x. All right, next. Determine whether each pair of expressions is equivalent. All right, well, let's see here. Are 4 times negative 2b plus 5 and negative 8b plus 10 equivalent? Well, what is 4? If we were to distribute, what is 4 times negative 2b? Well, that would give us negative 8b, and 4 times 5 would give us 20. But what we have over here is 10, so that's incorrect. So no, those aren't equivalent. On the next side, looks like I can distribute over here. Let me change my colors of the pen. Negative 0.75 times 12 would be a negative 8h. I'm sorry, that would be negative 9h. If I don't know what I'm thinking. 0.75 times 12 is 9, and that's a positive times a negative, so that does give us the negative 9h. A negative times a negative would give us a positive, and you'll notice this says negative, so that's not going to work. Also, 7.5 times 4.5 is not 4.5, so that's also wrong in that one. So those are not equivalent. All right, it looks like I have quite a bit to do here. I'm going to take this one off to the side, just so I can kind of do all the work for this one. Negative 7 times k minus 2 plus 3k. There's just a lot more work to do on this one, so I need the room for it. We want to see if that's equivalent to 28k minus 42. Inside your parentheses, you'll notice that you do have like terms, so we're going to work in there first. You got k and 3k combining to be 4k. You also have negative 2 and negative 4 combining to be a negative 6, because it's negative 2 plus negative 4. Distributing those numbers, negative 7 times 4k is negative 28k. And negative 7 times a negative 6 will be a positive 42. You'll notice something, though, right away. That's not going to work, right? It's because we have a positive 28 and a negative 42 on this one, but our numbers are backwards here, right? So had this been maybe a positive 7 instead of a negative 7, we would have been good. So that's a nope. Those are not equivalent. All right, and lastly, let's do some distribution. This has got to be the answer, obviously, right? But let's check it out. Let's distribute on this one. 1/8 times 48 comes out to be 6m. And then 1/8 times 24 comes out to be 3. And we end up with 6m plus 3. Is that equivalent to this guy? Yes, it is. All right, let's move on to the back side of this page now. Whoop. All right, I highly recommend at this point that try these problems out right before we begin and see if you can just write the inequality or the equation, whatever it comes out to be, for each of these, and then just resume the video to see if you got it right, and then erase it if you got it wrong and fix it, okay? This is just to kind of check if you're doing okay or if you need a little bit more help. And of course, we're going to give you the answers anyway, so don't worry about getting it wrong. That's just an opportunity to learn. In the first problem here, it says Eisenhower Middle School gives bottles of water to teachers and students who are going on a field trip. The school orders 500 bottles of water. They plan to give 35 bottles of water to the teachers. They order at least 2 bottles of water for each student. How many students could be going on the field trip? All right, so we already know that we are going to be totaling up to be 500 water bottles. They are going to be giving strictly 35 bottles to the teachers. And they'll be giving at least 2 bottles of water for each student. Okay, so that's 2 bottles per student. Okay, and this would be an at least number, so we're going to be giving at least this many students. Okay, at least kind of gives its way to an inequality, but let's be really careful there. We should be staying less than or equal to 500 because we are ordering 500 bottles. So we can talk about that in a little bit, and we will get there in just a second, okay? At this point, we can just get x by itself, and to do that, we need to get rid of this 2 and this 35, right? I highly recommend that you get rid of that constant first by subtracting 35 from both sides. Again, do not be afraid to use that calculator. I'd highly recommend not. You can try in your head, but then check with your calculator until you got it right like a dozen, 1,000 times, you know. So that comes out to be 465. The 35 minus 35 adds up to 0, leaving us with just 2x. Remember, that's 2 times x, so now we can divide by 2. And take that 465 and divide by 2. And that means we get x equals 232.5, which is a really weird number because we just said that we are going to be giving at least 2 bottles of water to 232.5 students, right? Now, not every student might show up, so this is probably going to be less than or equal to, and that's kind of what we're talking about. We're talking about at least, but we only can give 500 water bottles, so we can give at least to 232 students. We actually should not round this up, because if I round this up to 233, I won't have enough water bottles. So we're going to go ahead and round this and say that this is going to be 232 students. All right, next one. A photographer pays $60 for supplies. They make $4 per picture they sell. At the end of the day, how many pictures must they sell to earn at least $180? Okay, now this is going to be definitely right in inequality, okay? Right in inequality. So that's going to be less than, greater than, or one of those things. So because we want to sell at least $180, that's the minimum amount we want to sell. So I can sell $180, that's fine. worth, or I can sell 181, 182, or 183. So basically, I can be anything bigger than or even equal to $180. Okay. We also see that we're going to be paying at least a minimum of $60 for supplies. In addition to that, we will be making $4 per picture. So if I sell one picture, that'd be $4. Two pictures would be $8. So that is a multiplication right there. And then solve like normal. I'm going to go through this pretty quick. Minus 60, giving us 60 minus 60 is 0. So that's 4x greater than or equal to 120. Divide by 4 to get rid of the 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1, leaving us with just 1. X is greater than or equal. I do not flip the inequality because we did not divide by a negative. And 120 divided by 4 is 30. So, how many pictures must we sell? We have to sell a minimum of 30 pictures to make our $180 goal, but I can sell more if I want to make more money. But our goal is going to be a minimum of 30 pictures. Ooh. All right, 2 more to go. Dayton's family pays $12 for beach parking and rents 4 paddleboards. Each paddleboard rental costs the same, but they spent $80. How much does each paddleboard cost? All right, so this is going to be an equal to because it's asking you exactly how much does a paddleboard cost. We know that we're spending a total of $80. We're spending $12 for parking total, right? There's not like 12 times anything, but we are renting 4 paddleboards. It just doesn't tell me how much the paddleboards cost, just that they cost the same, right? So let's say they all cost $2. That means I'd be spending 2, 4, 8, all right, 2, 4, 6, 8, right? So that would be $8. If they were $3 a piece, that'd be $12 for all the paddle boards. Basically, we're just taking the 4 paddle boards and multiplying by the cost. So we have in our equation, it's 2 steps. We need to get rid of, we want to get this x alone, so we want x equals, right? So I need to get rid of this 4, and I need to get rid of this plus 12. So subtract that 12 from both sides. 12 minus 12 is 0. That leaves us with 4x over here. And 80 minus 12 is going to be 68. Next thing is to divide by 4 to get rid of the coefficient 4 because that's multiplying. We undo it with division. 4 divided by 4 is 1, leaving us with 1x equals 68 divided by 4, which is 17. So the paddle boards each cost $17 to rent. Lastly, remember to pause this, try it out. A group of her friends buy 2 large pizzas for $42. They buy 7 drinks. The drinks each cost the same amount. The group spends $61.25 total for pizza and drinks. How much does each drink cost? So what do we not know? We don't know how much the drinks cost. We know that we're buying 7. We bought 2 large pizzas for $42. Now, that's 2 large pizzas together. They both cost $42. That's it. Right? That was $20 a piece, $21 a piece. That's some expensive pizza, right? They also bought 7 drinks. I just don't know how much the drinks cost. But 7 times that amount would tell me how much all the drinks cost. We know that they spent a total of $61.25. So this is our 7 drinks. This is our 2 pizzas. And this is our total. Solve away. You should have subtracted 42 from both sides. Used your calculator probably to do that one. 61.25 minus 42 comes out to be $19.25. I'm going to just double check here really quick because I like to. 42 minus 42 is 0, leaving us with 7x over here. Divide by 7 to get that x all by its lonesome. Come on, colors. There we go. Divide by 7. I just chose the same color, didn't I? Divide by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1, so 1x equals 19.25 divided by 7 is $2.75 per drink. All right. Alrighty. Hopefully you guys got all that down. At this point, you can go work on your homework, any MyPath or whatever you got to work on. Remember that your test is coming up. Be ready for it. See you later.